She disagreed with your kink at pride stance. My internal metric for getting along with other content creators is that if they don't follow me on Twitter, they're probably pieces of shit. It works for me like 90% of the time. It's a little obnoxious, lol. Did me winking and doing the clicking noise with my tongue not sufficiently demonstrate sarcasm to you? Do I really have to make it more obvious than that? Like, was I not looking at the camera? Is that not... I'm sorry, I can't lay it on thicker than that. I'm really, 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 really sorry. Garfield, are you /S or /JK? You have to use tone indicators. Garfield! God damn it. Sarcasm is dead on the internet. You should know this. Yeah, I know. I'm literally like, you can hear the click. It's being picked up by the mic, right? I assume it is like that. Like, I can't. Thoughts on tone tags? I think tone tags are a terrible idea. Do you know why? Because people shouldn't be expected to use them, and people who get too used to them lose the ability to discern tone without them, okay? It's a muscle you have to lose, okay? You have to use. If you're bad at discerning tone from other people's text, learn to do it, motherfucker, okay? Jesus. We can't supplement every lacking social skill by adding some new linguistic component, you know? But a lot of people don't think it's their responsibility to understand other people. Oh, God. Let's do the hot takes right off the bat. This is one of the things. I'm autistic, too. Speaking as an autistic person, this is one of the biggest criticisms that I have of the broader neurodivergent community, particularly autistic people. It's that they don't think they have any responsibility to learn to understand other people. A lot of these communities get so wrapped up in self-acceptance that they stop believing it's necessary for them to learn communication skills, and they just wallow in their own communication styles, and it leads to them living miserable lives because they never learn how to talk with other people. Has anyone else experienced this? Come on, this is the thing that happens. Not all people, of course, but I think it leads to I've seen that a lot in ADHD related forms as well, Vaush. Yeah. I don't think there's nothing mutually exclusive about two positions, okay? They're like two positions, okay? It's very, very easy to reconcile these. First of all, neurodivergent people have difficulty communicating or understanding other people sometimes, so you should make an effort to like extend out a hand and, be understanding, etc., etc. So like we need to be accepting, compassionate, blah, blah. That's one take, and it's good, it's correct. And then the other one is, just because the first take is correct, doesn't mean that there's not an obligation for neurodivergent people to do their best to try to understand how to communicate with others. Because if you don't do that, and your only like communication rep is with your like tiny insular group of friends who all have a very particular dynamic and set of like terminology with one another, you are fucked for like life, dude, unless you fix your way out of that, I see you people, okay? I see you. All of the people out there who are neurodivergent, and their comfort is being in their little friend circle, okay? Who talk exactly like them, or at least who have communication methods that vibe with them, but they never learn how to talk with normies, and then they go out there in the real world for school or for a job, and you're fucked because you have no idea how to communicate with people outside that group, okay? Don't even bother elaborating. The clip's already up on Twitter. Good, cancel me. Anyway, yeah, I think it's very, very important, for everyone at all times, to learn how to communicate with other people, okay? Sometimes it's harder for people. We should all make the effort, right? Unless you're, like, super fucking disabled or something. I mean, obviously there's a threshold here, but just put a /S tag on the canceled clip then, Vaush. Doesn't /S mean serious? Wouldn't it be /JK? Or is /S sarcasm? Wait. That's very confusing. What? Okay. Well, see, now we're going, now we're seeing the other end of things. I'm criticizing people who use tone indicators for not understanding how I speak, and now you're criticizing me for not understanding how tone indicators work. /SRS is Siri. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. It all wraps around, doesn't it? You all get what I'm saying, right? Yeah, you need tone. I need tone indicators for tone indicators. By the way, you realize that if tone indicators start being used ubiquitously, you know what'll happen? People will start using them ironically. people will say ironic statements and then substantiate them with the slash serious, or and then people will have to tone indicate their way out of that. Yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure that already happens. So yeah, yeah, exactly. Sorry, there's just no getting your way. There's just no getting out of good communication skills. That's just a fundamental life ability. You cannot work your way around that. Not even for very disabled people. Yeah. Ooh, how hot of takes do we want to deploy today? How much shit do I want to deal with? Okay, I think I'm going to thread the line on this one. Okay, I think there's a really bad habit in a lot of marginalized communities of all kinds, race, gender, sexuality, neurodivergence, whatever, to form really insular communities in ways that are not just harmful because it annuls it destroys the ability for the people in those groups to interact with like normies, but also I think a lot of those social dynamics are like encouraged or led on by abusers. Because let me tell you folks, all right, if you're an abusive piece of shit who just wants to take advantage of people, the easiest group you're ever going to find are like members of a marginalized community that are looking for an identity and for a close group of friends that they will rely on entirely and not talk to people outside of that group. That is the that is the most vulnerable social group imaginable. And this happens all over the place. This happens in tanky circles too, where a lot of POC or like queer people or whatever will fall into these incredibly reactionary, like pseudo-communist, almost cults, and they don't interact with people outside of these groups. It happens the alt-right too. I feel like all internet social circles that are based around extremism or marginalization are like super vulnerable to fucking groomers. Yeah. Yeah, the internet does make that worse. This is literally how most cults were first formed. Yeah. Like Black Hammer? Yeah, like Black Hammer too. Just Tumblr SJW? Yeah, Tumblr SJWs. 100%. Absolutely. Oh my god, absolutely. Speaking of Sarah Z, you can go on her channel and you can see like some some stories about crazy shit that happened in the Tumblr community. You're going to look over that and you're going to say, "Wow, this sure was a bunch of 30-year-olds with emotional disabilities leading around a group of 14-year-olds like a fucking fiddler on the roof. I feel like that sums up a lot of drama. There's a whole bunch of like crazy shit going on, and you realize that like even if kids are the bulk of it, there are usually like a couple of adults peppered in that are hardcore like abusing the people around them. Yeah. But Vaush, the larger world already refuses to accommodate us even slightly. First of all, I want to wait. Hold on. We're gonna hope pill you, Jet King. That's not true. Unless you're living in like Saudi Arabia and you're gay, assuming you live in a Western democracy, there are probably ways for you to form social groups outside of incredibly insular communities that are specifically designed for your minority group. Okay. I mean, obviously, this varies person to person. If you're listening to me right now, some of you live in like LA, and some of you live in like bumfuck rural Bible Belt towns, and you're like in the closet trans. Obviously, this varies person to person. But I think for most people who are members of a marginalized community in like Western democracies, in countries that are relatively progressive, you can usually find ways to communicate with other people. And even if you can't, even if your only respite is the super, super tiny marginalized community group, still make an effort to talk to people outside of that group, okay? Because that is not a circle that will last you your entire life for a number of reasons. Unless they also end up being your coworkers and employers and educators and students and neighbors and landlords and etc. The cops who police your town, the politicians who rule your life. No. You have to interact with broader society. It's just a matter of getting better at it and getting more comfortable with it. The hardest group to counteract this is the deaf community, between the language barrier and the ideological views on both sides and implants. Ooh, wait. What if we did an even hotter take? Oh, I think we can do an even hotter take. Now, this isn't to speak to all deaf people, but I think from what I've seen of members in the deaf community, some members, or at least tendencies that I've seen in that community, there are some really weird elements of the discourse there. Some really, really weird stuff. There are a lot of deaf people who think it's unethical to give uh, cochlear implants, the ear implants, to young people to allow them to hear when they otherwise would have been deaf, because it's like a form of eugenics, that you're eugenicsing deaf people out of existence by allowing young people the ability to hear with modern medical technology. And I can and the people making these complaints are usually like older members of the deaf community who are sad there are fewer young members because young people are more likely to have benefited from that technology. And the logic of like, I'm a 47-year-old deaf woman and I hope they stop providing modern medical technology to babies so that there are more young people in my disability community is so fucking weird. No way are people like that. There has to be like 5 people. No, this is actually a very robust component of discourse in the deaf community. I'm not joking, okay? People who don't believe me, you're going to have to take my word for it. But if you look it up, this is actually something that's discussed. But yeah, there are people in here who know this. Um, Now, this is my hot take, but I think it's best if kids should hear. That seems good. In their defense, hearing with those implants sucks. Then let the kid make the choice after they're old enough. But I mean, look, when you put those implants in like the little deaf babies, like their faces light up when they hear their parents for the first time. I think humans are meant to hear. It's a disability when we can't. We should afford everyone the opportunity to hear if they can, if that's something we can do for them. Like, imagine if a kid was born with like some kind of like fucked up leg, like the bone was improperly sort of positioned, and the doctor was like, yeah, we can set it properly. It'll be like a surgery, but it's going to be pretty safe. It's just on the leg. And there was outcry because it was like eugenicsing the wheelchair community or something. I just feel like that. I just feel like, I don't know, you could run down a lot of really bad roads. I saw there are people Googling the discourse in chat live and finding out this is a real thing that people actually have strong opinions on. I guess I have strong opinion on it too. I just feel like my opinion's the right one. I don't know. Why would you be advocating for kids to be disabled when there's a cure? Well, again, this is the problem with conflating self-acceptance with, like, self-promotion, okay? We should be accepting of people who have trouble communicating, but it's still something we should try to fix. We should be accepting of people who wheel around in wheelchairs, but if we can find a way to fix that so they can walk, that's better. There's a big difference between accepting a community and saying, like, okay, but this is exactly the same as the alternative to this community, which just isn't true. That's why we call it disabled. Being deaf is worse than being able to hear. It doesn't make you a worse person, but it's a disability. You're losing out on a thing that you otherwise could have. They think that argument's the same as fixing LGBT people. If anybody thinks that being deaf is the same as being gay, they're absolutely brain dead. That is an absolute unbelievable degree of brain rot that I'm not capable of reconciling. If I say, hey, it's better that children are born able to hear, and they're like, ah, ha, so you think it's better that children should be born straight? This to me is an unfathomable brain melting. What about autism? Autism isn't a disability. It's not considered a disability. It's called a condition. It's a different set of priorities and ways of processing information, but it's not considered a disability, I think. Wait, am I wrong on this? Hold on, let me double check. I think it technically is. Okay, then let's resolve our axioms, huh? Is autism a disability? I've heard people say that it's not, that it's like a condition, a developmental disability that can cause significant social communication and behavioral challenges. Yeah, okay. So I'll ground my axioms on this one. I think that when it comes to deciding what types of things people should be or the decisions people can make about themselves, there's a fundamental difference between physical and neurological conditions. So something like deafness, the ability to be deaf or not be deaf, is very easy to understand. I've never been deaf in my life, but I know what it would be like to be deaf. I mean, I can imagine it. You understand what I mean. There's an ability that I have, and I can imagine not having it. Same with, I guess, having broken legs. I've been in a wheelchair before after, like, surgical stuff, so, like, just that, but forever, right? Not to make light of it, but I can understand it. That being said, oh, you can also simulate it, that's correct. You can simulate a physical disability. Autism cannot be simulated. If a person isn't neurodivergent, you cannot simulate autism. It's a completely different frame. It's a whole other thing. Same with a lot of neurological stuff like depression or ADHD, you know? Um, these things can't really be simulated. Additionally, there's no reversibility to adjusting the extent to which people can experience it, you know? If you want to go back to being deaf when you're 16 years old and you've had cochlear implants, you can stop having the implants. You really want to, you can smash a brick against the side of your head. However, with autism, this isn't like a back and forth kind of thing, you know? Why do people want to be deaf? I'm be real. Nobody wants to be deaf. And you know what? Nobody wants to be any kind of disability. People want to be themselves. And if the person they are is disabled, then they want to be that. But nobody without autism or Down syndrome or ADHD is going to say, I want that. Well, some people do, and they're usually pretty dumb and they don't understand the condition they're talking about. They don't want that. Why would they? It generally makes things harder. But if you are those things, I have ADHD and autism, I am those things, and I like being me. We're attached to who we are. And for that reason, we want to be us. We don't want to not be us. It's also very scary changing your mind state like that, you know? Because, like, imagine if you've been in a wheelchair your entire life, and somebody's like, hey, yo, I can magic you some working legs, buddy. That's awesome. Also, it's pretty easy to imagine walking around if you've been in a wheelchair your entire life, I feel like. You see other people doing it all the time, and even though you maybe can't comprehend the physiological way you maintain your balance, the practice of walking is something that's recognizable and understandable. I think this is pretty easy to get because I've only ever been bipedal, but I can look at a dog or a cat walk and think like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, you do like that and you'd like walk around like that. Yeah, okay, I get it, it's understandable. However, if you're autistic, changing your brain to be non-autistic is a fundamental rewrite of your entire perception of the world around you, you know? And that can be very scary and very different. Another critical distinction here is that when we're talking about giving cochlear implants to kids that are born deaf, we're talking about making medical adjustments to a child after their birth. When people talk about eugenics for autistic people, they're usually talking about killing children in the womb. Sorry, I just used a pro-life argument. They're usually talking about aborting autistic fetuses, not even giving them a shot at life. Like, not fixing the autism post-birth, but, mask off, people. Not even fixing the autism post-birth. They're talking about just not letting the autism happen in life, you know? Does that make sense? Does everyone understand the reason why I think there are differences between these things fundamentally? Now, with all of that being said, I'll bite the bullet on this. If we could somehow snap our fingers and fix every what we consider to be like a neurological condition and a physiological condition in all humans that will ever be born in this point forward. Not eugenics in the sense that you're like cultivating people who are born, but literally you just bam. The human genetic code no longer does any like weird aberrant things that lead to people being born without the ability to hear or with Down syndrome. And I would do it in an instant for physical disabilities. For neurological stuff, I feel like for the more extreme stuff, I would be okay with that. But I wonder if there's more richness to life with people having some degree of neurodivergence, you know? Like, so some people who are autistic are like me, where they're high functioning, and some people who are autistic are not as much. And would I think that my behavior lends flavor to human life and their behavior doesn't? I guess both do. But would they want to be born like lower functioning autistic? I don't know. They want to be who they are now, but that's because they were already born that way. What if they were born non-neurodivergent? Would that be preferable to them? There's really no way to get around this conversation without talking about some incredibly nuanced philosophy shit that I am not qualified to really talk about. So, I don't know. I really, really, really don't know. Honestly, my depressive episodes provide me a deeper understanding of the world. Yeah, that's how I feel sometimes too. When I'm like here right now talking to you guys, I'm thinking like, oh yeah, my experience with depression has given me a rich and unique insight into human behavior. But when I'm actually having a depressive episode, that is not what I am thinking, okay? When I'm actually having a depressive episode, I am not thinking, wow, I'm learning so much. I'm just learning so much from my experience here. This is truly an eye-opening. No, I'm thinking about I'm having bad thoughts. So it's very, very different. And I feel like this could be a self-justifying mechanism, right? Like post talk, like a person with depression is like, yeah, dude, actually, actually I do like having depression because like it gives me like life experience, man. Like, are we coping a little bit? Are we maybe huffing a little bit of copium? Because if I could neurology snap depression out of my brain, I totally would. The autism though? I don't know. It led me being pretty awkward in high school, but I think I'm all right now. What if I was never mildly autistic and then I was more of a normie in high school and right now I had like a desk job? What could possibly compare to the job I have now? I'm extraordinarily lucky. Would you be a different person without having depression in your life? Probably. I don't know. What if I snapped it out like right now though? You know? If I got rid of it in the past, that would change who I am now. But if I get rid of it right now, I mean, let's be real. Why do you think depressive people take meds? They wish they could get rid of it right now. You know? Um, Meds are just a little bit less scary than some kind of existential Thanos snapping of depression away, but, you know? It's complicated. Is neurotypical Vaush conservative? I'd hope not, but, Oh my god, Vaush, you are not like any other autistic individual I've ever worked with. I doubt you would meet current clinical criteria in the DSM. A fun and friendly reminder to all the friends of mine in chat that you don't get the totality of my personality from watching me perform on the screen here. Just keep that in mind, okay?